So I'm Chrisna du Plessis. I'm here with my colleague and friend Dominique Hes, and we're going to be talking about our fantastic book, Designing for Hope, which is now 10 years old. Dominique?
How did that happen? And because
I,
it's 10 years old, we have the rights back. And so we would like to give it away for free online to everybody so that we can share it. But the thing that we want to do together to add value to that is just to have a conversation, probably once a month, maybe once every couple of weeks. We'll see if you guys like the podcast, record it as a podcast, record it as a YouTube video, and just have a conversation around what's changed. Where are we going? Where have we been? What are the projects that are inspiring us? Hi, isn't this exciting?
this is so
Before we
exciting.
before we jump into it, I do in Australia we have this paying of respect to the lands and the people who have cared for these lands. And so I live on the lands of the Yalukit who have cared for this country for 65,000 plus years. In that time, they've had a lot of change, a lot of climate change, a lot of, ecological change, and they have persisted, continue to tell stories and continue to care for this country. And I have the deepest respect for that capacity to really listen and act with that
Yeah.
sense of reciprocity, contribution. And so paying respects to elders past and present and the lands in which I live. So welcome.
Yeah,
Um,
that is such a
I thought we'd
beautiful.
start. Yeah, thank you. Doesn't matter. I need to be a little less excited.
Okay, so where do we start? Um,
Well, maybe who you are, who I am.
so, Chrisna du Plessis, I am at the moment a research professor in regenerative futures at the University of Pretoria and a long scholar and wayfinder, I think, in terms of looking at different ways of looking at the world and understanding how we can get out of this trap that the world seems to have created for itself and come into a place that is more thriving and more beautiful for all.
Yeah, I'm Dominique, and I live in Australia and have been an academic for around 20 years and have recently left academia and have done a bunch of policy work, writing books, doing some talks, mainly being a house mum though. And this year, our book is 10 years old, Chrisna. Can you believe 10 years ago we
It
brought it
is
out?
happening.
Frightening. And I wanted us to start with just a little reflection on how we met first, and then we'll jump into the book. But the point of these pods and these videos, everybody, is that Chrisna and I will periodically, and we're going to announce what time that is, but at least once a month, but maybe more often, we'll take a section of the book and we'll reflect 10 years on what's shifted, what's inspiring us, what projects are out there, what books are we reading, and we'll just have a chat. And maybe in the future we might get some guests, but we're going to try and keep this 20 minutes. And so we'll see how we go. We're really looking forward to sharing this journey with you all. So, how did we meet?
There's many stories to this one. I think there's layers of meeting. And I think the first time we met was at a conference in Brisbane, where you had just completed your PhD and I just started my PhD journey. And you saw me sitting there doing a PowerPoint presentation to my PhD supervisor about what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do something about Indigenous knowledge and sustainability and didn't quite know what to do. And we started chatting. But I think where we really connected was in 2005 at a conference in Tokyo, where we were listening to all these stories about going green and sustainability. And both of us realized, but this is not where it should end. This is just the beginning. This is not the goal. And we had this crazy idea of what we called the 100 Monkeys Club.
Oh, I
Do you
forgot
remember
about
it?
that.
Where we thought if we could get enough people together to think in a different way, we might be able to get the change the way that the entire world thinks. And I think that was the beginning of the journey, as I remember it.
It was. And then we met again in Kuala Lumpur, I think, or in anyway, we sat on a bus on a bunch of tours around that conference. I think that was 2008-ish. I don't know. But really, when this book landed was in 2011, I think. We were in a
Yeah,
conference in
yeah.
Helsinki, and I was very cheeky, and I said to Chrisna, I want to write this book about, the story of how regenerative development came about and all of the bits that are part of that story. I'd love to have really i- pictures and projects and examples so that it's not just airy-fairy language and sort of things that aren't grounded in the reality of stories of place, of projects and of experiences. And you rattled off a bunch of people I should talk to. And
But
then when,
that was because we were busy at that stage with Richard Lorsch of he was then at Building Research and Information, is now editor of the journal, what is it, Cities and Buildings. And we were putting together a special edition on this emerging new concept of regenerative design with Raikol as the guest editor. So I knew all of these people because we had just had this amazing workshop in Canada, in Vancouver, yes. And I could say, let's go and speak to them. And then, of course, I invited myself along on Dominique's journey. Very cheeky of me. I said, if you want to go and speak to my friends, I want to come along. And that was the beginning of it.
it was. And then the next year we spent connecting with people and making sure that we had sort of 5 weeks to travel around. And we did Boston and New York and Kansas and Fort Collins and
Santa
a whole
Fe and
Santa
well,
Fe and a whole lot of stuff in between all of that. And just dreaming of what this future world that was flourishing and amazing could look like and talking to these amazing people. And that led to the book Designing for Hope.
yes.
But Designing for Hope came out and it's a beautiful book and it's got full of images. And then we were told how much it would be. And we were like, oh no.
Well, I know that it's a lot of my friends said to me they would love to buy the book, but it was simply too expensive, especially if you translate it into third world currencies like South Africa's. It becomes impossible. And I think that's part of the larger challenges that we have in taking out messages is traditionally we would do books and we have these beautiful books because they're tangible. I mean, just look at this. It's so beautiful to hold. But is there still the way to actually get things out and get information and share information and make it accessible to people? And I think this is where the wonders of the internet starts coming in, is that we can have these conversations, we can have these podcasts, and we can share our thinking in bite-sized pieces and people can get them for free.
That's
But
right. So
you want to tell the good stuff.
yeah. So we got the rights back after 10 years. Um, you know, Routledge Taylor Francis, thank you for 10 years. But we wanted to do what we could to enable this story to be out in the world. Because as I look through the book again, it's still very much a story that's current right now. And so for everyone out there, the electronic version, the full book, is free. And the links will be down below or wherever links go on these sorts of things. And what we also thought was, yeah, that's fine. We're not going to update the book because we want to keep it nice and cheap. We'll put it out there for free. If people want a hard copy, we've made it as low a cost as possible to order that, to buy that. But we thought there's be more around that. Let's do more around that, which is where the idea of this podcast and this video came about. And we thought, let's take a section of the book. So today is just an introduction, but next time it'll be all around the values and what does it look like to have a regenerative, flourishing, vital world in the future. And then we'll see. time after that, we'll really talk about ecological frameworks and working with nature and biophilia, biomimicry, and all of those, and weaving through that our fun memories of the writing of the book and the people we met and so forth, as well as projects have come up since then in the last 10 years that we really feel that is taking things to that next level, that is really building that capacity.
Now, I think there's an entire community that has been built since we started the book. And I think it would be really good to connect all those people as well and bring them in. And fair warning, we are doing this very much in the same way as we did the book, the interviews for the book, which is a little bit by the seat of our pants. We did a wonderful documentary called The Regenerates that we had the magician Alex Melk put together for us out of something like 54 hours of unedited footage. And the footage was really crappy because it was, I guess maybe we should record this, buying a camera on the way to the airport and then setting it up and learning how to do this on the fly as we were interviewing people.
At some level, I was aware that the world is in trouble, that the relationship between humans and nature leaves much to be desired, that there is some urgency to find a better way for humans to be on the planet. But I'm a filmmaker, and looking after the world is not my business. Or so I thought. Until I received about 50 hours of raw interview footage with the instruction to turn it into a documentary. My clients, Chrisna du Plessis and Dominique Hes, never intended this footage to be used in this way, and if they had, this is not the movie that they had in mind. What they gave me was countless hours of unrehearsed, unvarnished and raw discussions, with the sole purpose of which was not to simplify the issues, but rather unpack their complexities in order to find a vision for a different way of being in a complex world.
So it is a really funny video to watch. Not at all professional. We're professional academics. We're not filmmakers. We're not professional podcasters, although we can talk a lot. But so expect that this is what the podcast is going to be. It will be a fun journey, flying by the seat of our pants. We're really open to suggestions. What do you want to know more about? Which aspects of the book do you think has really touched you that we can expand on? Who are the people in the book that maybe we can talk to? Some of them are no longer around, unfortunately, but I think there are a couple of people whose work has really developed since we did the book that would be really nice to invite and have that conversation. And people that
who
were
has
inspired.
Come? Yes.
Yeah. People who were inspired by the book and are now running very successful podcasts like Nirmal Krishnani's Ecogradia. So there's, I think, so many people that we can connect through this that we would really like to do this as a means of opening up the community and the discussions and the thinking.
That's right. That's right. Because I don't know how you feel, Chrisna, but for me, the sense of potential and hope is so needed right now.
Absolutely.
That sense that we can, for the young people, for the mothers, for the families, for the communities, that sense of having some other model than the model that is not serving us around us at the moment, that we might be able to turn to. And there are so many exciting things that have come since we worked on the book. There is that whole connection to the Indigenous knowledges. Braiding Sweetgrass, such a magical book. There's so many of these things that I just can't wait to discuss as we work our way through the book. And then what I've also created is we have a file which is quite small so that everybody can download it of the full book. But when we're looking at a section, we will also share a higher quality version just of that section so that, again, it's easy to download wherever you are in the world, but that you get a little bit more of that because we spent so much effort and love finding the photos and crafting the book and the wonderful Joy, the graphic designer, which reminds me, we should talk about the people behind the book and behind this podcast. So behind us sits Varushka and Noz, who are going to be putting together what this looks like at the end, and really thankful to them. Thank you to Nikki, who was really the person who held us safe through the journey of writing the book, to the 50 odd people who we talked to and visited and projects and so forth. And to the various students that I co-opted into copy editing because, English is not to Chrisna's great frustration. English is
It's also
not
my
my...
first language, so we really needed people to help us through that.
That's right, that's right. And we've both been on great journeys as well, so reflecting on our own journeys is also something that I'm really looking forward to. I'm just looking at my notes. So one of the things that I thought we could finish up on is just to reflect on each of us a favorite story in the writing of the book. And so for me, well, there are actually two. It wasn't going to be called Designing for Hope. It was going to be called Frameworks for Regenerative Development in the Built Environment. Boring. And I'd love to, Chrisna, if you remember what Bill Reed put me through to extract from me the reason for this book, if you remember that story.
Yeah, it really put us through our paces. It's one thing pitching up at somebody's house in Boston and saying, we're not going to stay with you for a week, and you're going to drive us all around the world because we want to do this book. And he started saying, but have you thought why you want to do this book? And what it is that you want to get out? What is the potential? And it took us through this whole regenerative process of figuring out what this book is about and what we're going to call it. And that was actually quite taxing because we didn't really think about it. We just knew in our guts that this is what needs to be. And so we had all these titles that are incredibly academic. And I kept on saying, I think we need something that really captures the imagination. And then somewhere in Bill's BMW on a road up north in the United States, I think we were driving up to
a school in Vermont.
The school in Vermont, yeah. And it just came to me that we should call it Designing for Hope. And then a lot of people tell us now hope is a very bad thing because hope tells us that it's idealistic, it's not real, it is imaginary. And we got all this flack from our reviewers about the title and why do we include hope. So at the end, I had to write an entire epilogue about why hope. But for me, it was this, and what triggered this thing of Designing for Hope was coming across this quote by Raymond Williams that we also have in the front of the book, that is said to be truly radical is not to make despair convincing, but to make hope possible, something like that.
And it's the possible. It's that
and it's the possible.
Yeah.
It is that absolute possible. It's that principle of active hope, of understanding, yes, we are in a really bad space, but we need to be able to get through this space. And what do we need to do to get through this space? And what is the alternative model that we can envision that is not just patching up the old models of doing things, but that is really creating a new way of doing and a new way of being. And that's
or relearning a way of being that we have forgotten.
It's relearning our old ways of doing things. Yes, so it's this almost cycling back to where we come from and coming back to our connections that we have lost in so many ways.
Hope is when you see people vibrating with newfound discoveries about relationship and potential for their engagement and the health of their children and the health of the ecosystem they're participating in. They can see a way forward. So what happens when you have all these contradictions? Because you always do. So you have this, they all get written down though because it's a vision. So this one guy said, I want 2 new lanes on Route 5. Another guy says, I don't want those. I don't want those 2 new lanes. I don't even want Route 5. But that dutifully gets written up on the flip chart. No Route 5, Route 5. 2 new lanes on Route 5. So what's a mother to do? The only thing we can do is say, well, let's play a game. Let's go. And there's lots of different ways. This is just a technique. Sir, why don't you want those 2 new lanes? Why do you want those 2 new lanes on Route 5? Well, everybody knows why we want those 2 new lanes on Route 5. Well, sir, you're not everybody. And we want you to reflect on why you want those 2 new lanes in Route 5. And I can guarantee that's the first time that fellow was ever asked that question. Because we live in these broad generalities. Well, of course we know. Oh, yeah, we know. So, all right, so why do you want those 2 new lanes in Route 5? Wow. I want to get to work faster. Good. Why do you want to get to work faster? That's hard. Well, I want to get my work done faster. Why do you want to get your work done faster? At this point, he's getting a little frustrated because you're actually making somebody think, to see their thinking. That's really hard. I don't know about you, but that's hard for me because we're on automatic most of the time. Why do you want to get your work done faster? You see the steam. All right, I want to go home faster. Why do you want to go home faster? I want to be with my family. And by the way, his voice goes up. You can feel the energy. I want to be with my family. And then you know you're onto something because there the energy is so apparent. Good. So you want 2 new lanes on Route 5 could be equivalent to care for family. And he knows he's being, a little manipulated, but he's not. He answered those questions. Now, you, Mr. Environmentalist, why don't you want those 2 new lanes on Route 5? Everybody knows, yeah, we've been there. So why don't you? Well, we got to protect the critters and the ecosystem. Okay, good, agreed. Why do you want to do that? Well, we need healthy ecosystems to make clean water and, okay, why do you care about that? And again, boom, his energy went up. I played in this, I grew up here and I played in these swamps when I was a kid. I learned all that I learned about life in these swamps. Okay, so keeping, not allowing these 2 new lanes on Route 5 is the same thing as care for family. So you 2 guys who are 180 degrees opposite, right, are aligned around a value of care for family. Now we can work with something. So what that does, what it shifts, in order to reconcile these conflicts, is that we have to actually find out what people are valuing to explore new potential. Because if they can get to their values, that allows us to go hundreds, if not thousands, of different directions. And if we can get into the position of understanding what the tree values and the squirrel values and the polar bear values, because they all value something, right, to sustain their own lives. And that gives us a point to reconcile and harmonize life on the planet. It's not a compromising game. It's not a zero-sum game.
And then the other favorite story of mine was the when we were in Kansas and we were talking at there in BNIM. BNIM? Am I saying that right? My brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, guys. Menopause is my excuse. And Laura was telling this story about a tornado that came through an area. And as she was about to tell the story, she just welled up with emotion and it just became this charged atmosphere. And she's smiling and kind of crying and kind of shy. And then she says, "Oh, it's a really beautiful poem. It's such a beautiful poem." And it was written by children about the tornado, but not that the tornado was bad. The tornado was good because it helped them to reflect about the issues within their city. So the disparities and so forth. And then they end with this amazing, I mean, the poem and the way that Alexander filmed it and the music and the narration of it it's just so powerful. They've going back to hope, right? And that sense of possible. They end with, this is not impossible. It is I'm possible. And yeah, that for me was just magic.
In Springfield, Massachusetts, they had a tornado a little over a year ago, and we helped in the rebuilding or the plan to rebuild effort. And there was a group of kids again who it was a theater group actually, and they saw the tornado and they wrote this incredible poem about it. They saw the tornado as a good thing, and it revealed. It's a really powerful. It's a really powerful poem because they talk about their tornado as a mother tornado who cleaned up a mess, and it wasn't the disaster that was a mess. It was what existed before the tornado that was a mess.
To our mother tornado. This is not a game. No more fighting for trophies on the wall. We stand for our home, our city. We see her. She wants to change, productive change. Now I stand for my home, my city. They're just kids, you say. We don't know what we want, but when we talk, we are ignored. Now it's our turn to speak. You had your chance. When I hear impossible, I say I'm possible. Everything is possible. We are possible. Let us destroy deception and hypocrisy. We need action, voice, conviction, an impossible vision. Our mother came to clean up a disaster.
So when the kids offer that clarity and that brilliance, it really helps it for someone around to say, listen to that.
Yeah.
That's your future if you choose to accept it.
It really is giving them an opportunity. This tornado really is giving them an opportunity to completely turn around their future if they choose to do it.
And it's incredible. It's almost an addiction for us now to see that opportunity. Right. And it's horrible that it has to come as a result of such a disaster. Mm-hmm. But if they can overcome that animal instinct to rebuild exactly what was there at the earliest possible moment, and they can hear that clarity and that inspiration, and they can claim a new future, the outcomes are remarkable.
Our Mother Tornado was
Yes,
the poem's
my mother
name.
tornado.
I still use it in my lectures. I'm actually, after this, giving a lecture to a bunch of very important people doing a kind of MBA program, and it's in that lecture. It was really a moving thing. And I think the other one that was for me really an embodiment of what we're trying to do is this, the twirly. You remember the twirly?
Oh,
we stayed in Colorado with
Brian Dunbar.
Brian Dunbar, yes. And Dominique went for a walk early in the morning. She's an early morning riser. I'm not. And she came back with a photograph of the twirly. And what it is somebody in the roads department, we actually found out afterwards who it was, had a little bit of, they were fixing the cracks in the road. So they had the tar that they would use to fix the cracks. And what this person did is, instead of just doing a random little squirt of tar, they made this beautiful twirly design on the road with the tar. And that was the kind of thing where you look at it and you think, this is, it doesn't make any financial contribution. It doesn't save the whales. It doesn't do any of those kind of things. But for the people who drive that road every morning, they see this sort of joyful expression of what I can do in my little sphere of influence to make the world just that little bit better. And that then led to the whole symbol of the hummingbird for the regenerates and for the books, of the idea that we can just, everybody just do a little bit, then maybe we can make a big change.
This idea of regenerative or contributive practice is that you don't need to change the whole world all at once. What you need to do is to practice in a way that you feel is adding value, doing the best you can to connect to the systems around you. And that reminds me of a story that Chrisna often uses in her talks, which is that the story of the little hummingbird. And the little hummingbird is in a huge bushfire. All of the animals are standing around looking helpless, seeing their homes burn. And the little hummingbird is going backwards and forwards to the water, just getting one drop and dropping it on the fire and going back. And the animals shake their head and go, "What do you think you're doing? It's such a little thing that you're doing. You'll never put out this huge fire with your little drops." And the hummingbird goes, "But I'm doing what I can." That little action by the hummingbird provided the example for the others to be involved and help come together to put out the fire. And for me, that is what contributive practice is about. And that is such a powerful message to me. I am just doing what I can.
So next podcast, we're going to do a deep dive into the first section of the book, which is really what is regenerative development and what could be the values. And this was 10 years ago. So it'll be a really fun reflection around where we were then and what we thought and what has shifted. And I think within that, there'll be a discussion, at least from my end, over what is regenerative development and is the word important or is the concept important? Because it is starting to be something that's attached to everything. Yet there are some fundamental principles and values that underpin it, and it doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is that capacity, that potential to make everyone feel possible, make everyone feel like they are part of doing their little bit. So that is next time. So thank you, everybody. Yeah, excellent. Any last words from you, Chrisna?
Oh, I think this is going to be an incredible journey. And it's a co-creative journey. So help us to make it something that would really be valuable to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.